What a gift that the Dallas Cowboys did not play this weekend, so we can dive right into the arguing that broke out yesterday. As soon as we sat down to eat at Jared Sandler's charity event, it was Bobby Belt versus Will Chambers. And get ready for the first radio round here on Shan and RJ. It's DFW Sports Station 105.3 The Fan.
I'm trying to figure out, what take each one had because, Will's a college football junkie. I'm trying to figure this one out here.
Who's his school?
Kentucky.
And who was controversially allowed in? And what conference are they both from? And what brainwashing, for all the talk of Texas A&M being a cult, I think that means they fit right into the SEC, which is the biggest cult. It needs to be called the Heaven's Gate Conference. You guys are so Jim Jones brainwashed into how elite you are there. Why even have the committee? Why not just put the 4 top SEC teams in every year? Because it is just so necessary to have the SEC present that we've got to disrespect Florida State. We've got to disrespect Ohio State, whoever else you want. Whatever criteria you use to select the CFP, there's no justification for Bama being in there. Why don't you
just say that you hate Alabama so much that's why you're taking this stance? Because Alabama's win over Georgia, unarguably, is the biggest win of the year in college football.
Wrong.
Oh, no.
Beating Bama at Bryant-Denny by double digits? No. Okay, fine. I mean, you can say whatever you want,
but Georgia hadn't lost in 3 years. And that is, without question, the biggest win of the year. Nobody is making the argument, other than you, that the win was not the biggest win of the year.
I don't hate Bama at all. I love Bama. I'd love to play them 12 weeks out of the year because then Texas would go 12-0 and we wouldn't have any discussion about this. It'd be awesome. So no, I love Bama. But the SEC didn't deserve to be in this year.
Here's the top 6 for those that did not pay attention yesterday. Michigan 1, Washington 2. I saw some people with their predictions maybe think that Washington was going to get 1. They were going to flip them, but it's Michigan 1, Washington 2. Bobby and Peyton's Texas Longhorns that you heard on Texas radio coming back from AT&T Stadium. The Longhorns are 3. And then the controversy with Alabama getting in at number 4. The Florida State Seminoles left out at 5. And the Georgia Bulldogs at 6. RJ Choppy, give us your thoughts.
Look, they got it right. Florida State, you can say all you want about their resume the whole year. The committee did not view it like that. The committee viewed them as a 2-0 football team. And a 2-0 football team that looked bad doing it. And look, if they had quarterback play, even as good, let's just say they had SMU's back, because SMU had a backup playing this weekend.
Congratulations to them.
And he played pretty well. Let's just say Florida State over these last 2 games, and they had 2 different quarterbacks because the other one went down with a concussion. Let's just say they played that well. They're probably in. And they would have deserved it. But they didn't. They didn't play well at all. If they played as well as Cardale Jones did against Wisconsin, where he put up 59, if he played as well as even Joe Milton last year, Bobby, who at the end of the year, they're probably in.
Right, because I do recall last year you aggressively arguing for the Hendon Hookerless Tennessee Volunteers to be given all this credit that you don't want to give to Florida State.
But they still were left out. They still should not have made the Final Four.
By the way, even with Hendon Hooker, they got their ass kicked. Tennessee did.
But they still should not have made it. My only thing was they should have been ahead of Bama.
With or without Jordan Travis, this team was undefeated. They did in the ACC. It doesn't matter. If you take the name Clemson, and put it on Florida State, they put Clemson in over Bama.
It's very hard to take you. First off, I totally agree with RJ. So this is going to be a very fun show, especially while you're really massively hungover.
I'm not hungover at all. I feel great.
He's still drunk.
I feel great.
There's 2 things. Number 1, it's very hard to take you seriously because you are incapable, more so than RJ. RJ has grown in leaps and bounds.
About time, only 44.
You're incapable of admitting that you're wrong. So your Bama take throughout the year, you're not going to retract.
You agree with me.
Admit that you were wrong on. That's number 1. So you're not going to apologize on your Bama thing.
Nope. Philadelphia Crimson Vikings.
So if they win out, you're not going to give them credit for winning out.
They went out there, but they're not going to do that. They will get their ass kicked by either Michigan or Washington or Texas. They are going to
destroy Michigan.
0 chance.
Michigan is a garbage team. I can make the argument that your 4 best teams is that Texas should be number 1, and then Bama, and then Georgia, and then Ohio State.
We'll get into.
I could easily make that argument.
We've got a lot of time for the future matchup build-up. Let's save some segments. Let's not burn it like the other 2 shows. And then number two, Bobby, you are completely ignoring the part of the criteria that cost the Seminoles. And you knew it was going to cost the Seminoles because you predicted this Final Four. And part of that criteria is we are going to take injuries or major coaching changes into account. The big question here is, how fair is that? You have your Johnny 100% effort people out there saying, well, then, Cardale Jones did it, and we're going to need a case study on Ohio State to compare because that's everyone's comparison. Why would you count out the third string? It's not going to be the third string in a month. It's going to be the second string. You rah, rah, roo, roo. And the rest of us are saying, no, man, you are not as good of a team with your backup quarterback. You're not a true championship contender. That's what this comes down to. For those that all played on the field, your Booger McFarlands, we got to go out and settle it. We proved that we could go into the swamp, beat Florida by 9, 24-15. We proved that we could beat Louisville 16-6, the number 14 team in the country. But don't ignore the part of the criteria where they said, you have an injury like this, it's going to cost you.
And that's completely fair. That's fine. That's why I said, regardless, whichever criteria you want it to be, who are the four that earned it? Who are the four best teams, period? Bama is not included in the top four. They're just not. Ohio State deserves to be there over Bama.
Let me ask you this.
By the way, Ohio State's quarterback, they just announced his transferring, Kyle McCord. He's leaving. Yeah, so the Buckeyes are losing their quarterback.
Well, they'll probably get an upgrade. Let me ask you this. Tomorrow, seriously, though.
Yep.
Neutral field, Alabama versus Florida State. What would you set the spread?
Bama minus 13.5. That's why I said, if we're talking about who is better, though, if that's the criteria of who are the four best that deserve to be in, then we're talking about Ohio State over Bama. But then just go, well, they won the SEC title. It does not matter.
They're saying that Florida State. They're saying Florida State is not a legitimate contender with their quarterback situation. That's part of the criteria, and you're agreeing with it.
I know. I said no. What I said was, if you are going to give the criteria as who are the four that have earned it, regardless of anything else, Florida State deserves to be in. If you're talking about who are the four best teams right now, Florida State does not deserve to be in, but Bama doesn't either. That's my whole thing. That regardless of the criteria, this is the SEC cult mindset.
You know what's getting lost? It is. You know what's getting lost in this whole thing, and it goes back to RJ's point like 5 minutes ago. The Georgia Bulldogs are getting completely disrespected, and they're going to be completely forgotten.
Georgia's better than Bama.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Bama beat them.
That's okay.
And they went through the SEC. We got to factor in strength of schedules. We got to look at all that stuff. But
Bama's strength of record was third. Strength of schedule was fifth.
For who?
Bama.
What?
Strength of record was third. Strength of schedule was fifth.
The fact that they beat Georgia, we cannot lose sight of it.
In basically a home game for Georgia in Atlanta.
And we're going to lose sight of it. We are. Ohio State's going to get kind of forgotten and disrespected in this whole thing throughout the year, and Georgia is as well. That Georgia dropped from 1 to what?
1 to 6, which is an unprecedented drop. No team has ever been number one in the sorry, Peyton, I said it properly. No team has ever been number one in the second to last ranking.
Penultimate,
and then fallen out. Every other team that was in Georgia's spot stayed in the rankings after a loss, and Georgia didn't.
Yeah.
Like, you could easily make the if you
I
want to
make the case they got screwed the most.
If you want to make the case that Georgia should be number 4, not Bama, I'm not going to argue with you there.
They are so thirsty for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide, the CFP committee. They wanted it so bad, and then freaking McElroy slobbering all over the committee of the bravery you had to put the 4 best in there. Bama's not one of the 4 best. Do you think? Regardless, you understand. Like, I know you're saying, hey, you beat Georgia. That's a huge victory. You deserve to be rewarded. You went undefeated in the SEC, everything else. But do you think right now that you'd say Bama's one of the 4 best teams in the country right now? You think who's out? Are they better than?
They're better than Florida State.
Are they better than Georgia?
I don't know.
If they ran it back, I think Georgia probably would win the next game.
Georgia wins more if you play 10. Georgia wins most of them.
I agree. Keep going.
Michigan's been the best team in the country all year.
I think Michigan's trash. I think Michigan
you just hate the Big
Michigan
Ten.
Can't score.
Michigan can't score.
Michigan can't score.
No one can score on Michigan. That's
because they play Iowa.
You hate defense. You hate defense. That's why you're going to be biased.
You won't admit that you're wrong about your Saban take. It's hard to take you seriously.
Wait. What's my Saban take?
You said, Alabama. Here we go. Alabama. They're mid now, and Nick Saban's not going to be able to buy his players, and the NIL's even thinking out. And I was like, don't discount him. Don't sit there and you thought when they lost to Texas, like a lot of people did, they were on their way to a 3 or 4 loss season. They responded, maybe his best coaching job ever, and you can't get over that. You're so bitter about it, and you're trying to stick to your narrative that you don't want to say that they're playing incredible football right now.
They're not playing incredible. This is
They beat Georgia.
They did.
Beat Georgia.
That's
a hell of a
huge
win.
victory. It is. So's Texas going to Bryant-Denny winning by double digits.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that when you look at
Alabama
over the season,
and here's why the Bama Georgia win may be better, because of the team. Committee does not take this into account either. Bama's a much better team right now than the team you all beat. I'm not taking away from Texas. Texas deserves it. They should get the credit. But Jalen Milroe got demoted.
The week after, right?
Right after that. Bama,
a week or two
he
after.
is a much better quarterback. Ray Charles could see it. You could see it last night after your 9th shot of whatever you were drinking. And that's why that's why they're a better football team.
When you look at over the course of this season, it is completely fitting the Eagles and the Crimson Tide. Those are the same football teams right now, because you've got the quarterback named Jalen, who can't actually throw; he just runs. That's the fitting on both teams. You've got the fact that we are going to style point everything they've done. They lucked out against Auburn.
They did.
They got handled most of the game by USF. The South Florida Bulls should have beat them. It was pathetic. Texas handled them.
That was the game they benched. That they didn't start Milroe, right? That was the game that they played.
You just can't keep track of your arguments.
Texas A&M should have beat them.
On one hand, you don't have a true, real answer for who 4 should be, and on the other side, you're just bitter towards the SEC. That's what it is. You're pissed off. You're mad.
Which is odd because you're going to be in it.
I'd rather stay in the Big 12 at this point. I don't want to join a cult. I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. I don't want Marshall Applewhite and the Heaven's Gate Conference to brainwash
So
me.
who should be 4?
If we're talking about in the sense of who are the 4 best teams, Ohio State should be the 4th that gets swapped in.
Okay, so your argument is for Ohio
State or Georgia. They're both better than Bama. I'm not saying Bama's not a top 6 team in the country. They are. But Bama, there's no reasonable argument to put them in the top 4.
Winning the conference championship doesn't mean anything.
Because that is a criteria.
Say winning the conference championship.
That is a criteria.
Look, if it's not for playing in the same conference as the best team in the country right now, Michigan, Ohio State runs. And they lose by 6. They barely lose on the road to the best team in the country. I don't think they should be penalized like that.
There's more for me, not the best team in the country. I mean, they're not.
Because you have the SEC
first of all, Washington's resume is far better than Michigan's.
Yes, Washington has probably the strongest resume in the country.
Better. And Washington's trash. Their quarterback stinks. He's garbage.
Gosh. You were trying to argue him for the Heisman all year.
He's having a great year, but he can't throw. He throws like Josh Heupel. He's got that little that push throw. He's a push thrower. He's got no arm.
He's
like Max Johnson.
You can't talk to me
Max Johnson out there.
You cannot talk to me like this about Michael Penix, who arguably should win the Heisman, and then try to tell me Jalen Milroe, he's great. And then you're talking about mechanics and ugly throwing.
Penix is a much better quarterback than Jalen Milroe.
Look, you just said Penix is awful.
Penix just can't throw. He doesn't have a good arm at all.
Look,
Sean would be sitting there throwing. He'd be talking to him in the contract, him throwing chest passes and change-ups.
It's unfortunate for Florida State. It sucks if their quarterback does not get hurt. And here's another part of the argument. If their quarterback does not get hurt, this is not a discussion. It's not an argument.
They're number 1.
Now, is it fair for us to just discount them because of their backup quarterback? That is a great part of the argument. The other part of the argument that Bobby and other anti-SECers have is, and Kirk Herbstreit kept hammering this home, he said this would apply to anyone. If J.J. McCarthy got hurt, Michigan would be dinged.
They'd be out.
If Milroe, well, he got benched at some point in time in the year. But you name any of the top 4 quarterbacks. I'm blanking on. Penix. If Penix got hurt, Washington would be dinged. There are those like Bobby and those that hate the SEC and think that it's all rigged that don't believe that.
Clemson.
Clemson.
Clemson is the example. If Florida State's name is Clemson and all the goodwill that Clemson has built up with the CFP committee over the last several years.
Florida State is a bigger program than Clemson.
Historically.
The Florida State Seminoles, I know you're probably too young for it, that you may not have been able to watch TV homeschooled. The Florida State Seminoles were
Florida State's a bigger brand than just about all these schools that are in it. They're a bigger brand than Washington. They're not a bigger brand than Michigan. They're not a bigger brand than Texas or Alabama, but they're a huge brand.
Yes. Right. Typically, they have been one of the bigger brands in college football over the last 30, 40 years. I get all that.
And all the people in that room, those committee members, are 75 years old.
Clemson in the last several years has been one of the mainstays. It's been Clemson, Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Georgia, Bama. That has been, and Ohio State thrown in there. That's been the CFP's love affair for the last decade.
Absolutely.
So if Clemson, who was given way too much credit at the beginning of the season to begin with, as one of the top teams in the country, even though everybody could see that they were not the same team, if they lose Klubnik and they're back, and Klubnik's not even very good. He's not even as good as Jordan Travis. But if you have the same exact scenario, the same schedule, everything else, they put Clemson and Bama. 100% they do.
I don't think so, man, because, listen, like Florida State had historically an awful offense over the last 2 weeks. Like, they were terrible. Would they throw 55 yards passing? They scored 3 points in the first half. The team they played just gave up 40 to Kentucky.
We saw the evidence of their quarterbacks.
Yeah,
what if it was like 3 days ago?
If it was okay, so if Travis got hurt in the game,
they may have got more benefit of the doubt.
They're going to get in.
Yeah,
they're going to get in if he got hurt in the game. The fact that it was 3 weeks ago, or if he got hurt 10 weeks ago, like he said, if he got hurt 10 weeks ago, they're probably in.
That's
because they would have won without that guy, without their guy, and they would have had time to grow.